Mi nombre es Sergio Bulan, yo soy el editor de Empresa Activa y en nombre del sello Empresa Activa y Ediciones Urano les agradezco a todos que estén aquí para la presentación de este libro que se llama Un segundo de ventaja, escrito por Rasmus Hougaard, Eduardo Cauriaza y Celia Pipó. Simplemente decirles que este es un libro muy especial para mí, no solo por editor, sino que entre otras cosas lo traduje yo. Y he podido comprobar mientras lo iba traduciendo que realmente el método funciona, porque nunca he hecho un trabajo tan concentrado y evitando distracciones como esta traducción. El libro es sumamente sencillo y sumamente práctico, que es lo que más me gustó, y porque va al grano, como dice el autor, el libro empieza por la práctica y va de la práctica a la teoría, y no de la teoría a la práctica, que es lo normal. Entonces uno ya lo puede empezar a ver que los resultados que obtiene ya desde las primeras páginas.
Who would dare to share what you know about mindfulness? What is it? Anybody who would like to say what you think it is?
¿Alguno no vergonzoso?
Lo puede decir en español.
Yes, please.
The capacity to be in the present moment.
Capacity to be in the present moment, yeah. Very, very much. So it's really the ability to be present right here, right now. Which, personally, as a father of 3 children and as the founder and managing director of a global business, to me seems to be one of the most fundamental important things in life. And when I experienced this practice about 25 years ago, even back then, when I was still studying, I felt like my mind was a bit scattered. And when I discovered this practice, it just completely changed my life in terms of my ability to be with other people, be really present, be more caring, be more patient, but also in terms of doing the studies I had to do. And nowadays, the ability of dealing with, 150, 200 emails every day and having back-to-back meetings and flying all over the world all the time. To me, mindfulness is really the key foundation of anything you want to be good at. Without mindfulness, it's really hard to be good at anything. So I like that definition. Thank you. So my background is, of course, within mindfulness for quite a few years now. But I also have a research background. That was my first professional career, going into organizations, understanding the brains of people and understanding how people learn. Then I went into the corporate world, trying to use some of those tools and knowledge that I had. And after having worked as a people manager for 5 years, I have realized that people in work life, people in organizations nowadays, are so incredibly distracted because of all of our social media, because of our mobile phones, because of our emails, and because just the general pressure. I found that people were not paying attention. My boss was not paying attention, my people were not paying attention, and I was contemplating that for a while, and I realized that that skill of being able to be present in the moment was what they were missing. And I thought, okay, can I stand up? Is that okay? Just so I can see a little better. And I realized that stuff, mindfulness, that I practiced for many years, that I did it for myself. And I saw all of my colleagues in the Sony Corporation, they really needed it. And they were stressed out. Many of them were burned out. And they didn't live up to their potential. They were not as happy as they could be. And I thought, that's just not okay. I cannot walk around with these methods and just enjoy it for myself without giving it to others. And so I thought, I'm going to make a shift. So I quit Sony and I started Potential Projects. And I got the first client in Copenhagen, which was a very large organization, and had the whole leadership team together for a full day. And I was so excited because all these things that I had learned about mindfulness for many years back then, finally I could give that to other people. And I came in the morning and I shared all kinds of stories of my long retreats in the mountains and so on. And it was great, and the whole morning I put them to long meditation practices. And I loved it. And then there was a lunch break. And people went to lunch, and I went for lunch, and I came back in the room, and I looked at the clock, and it was 2 minutes past lunch hour. And it was 5 minutes past, and it was 10 minutes past, and people did not come back. So yeah, you may laugh now, it was quite painful back then. Everything that I loved a lot, people didn't seem to understand. And what I realized was, if you want to take mindfulness, which is perceived as very private, very individual, quite soft, fluffy, weird thing, and bring that into business, you need to make a really seamless integration. You need to make a very happy marriage, where people practicing are getting benefits out of the practice from day one, so that they can see a change in their lives, not just in their performance, but also in their well-being. And I had not managed to do that. So we spent 3 years testing and developing and putting some practices together, and then we went to a large insurance company and we launched the first program, like 10-session program. And researchers followed, and media followed, and it was a really great success because we managed to create that synergy where mindfulness had a direct benefit in people's work life. And the results were great, the media wrote about it, and then suddenly it was all over the place, and within 2 years we had launched in, I think, 10 countries, and now we're in 27 countries, I believe, working with 400 very large organizations around the world. A lot in leadership, but also employees. And what we're finding is just that people are finding more effectiveness, more performance, less stress, more well-being, which is all great. But the big question is why? What is it what is the secret sauce, what is the ingredient in mindfulness that has so many positive impacts? I worked with this guy called Jacob. He was one of our first clients years ago, and he came to me and he said, Rasmus, I'm the VP in this very big bank in Europe, and he said, Rasmus, I feel like I'm very busy, and because I'm so busy, because I have so many emails and so many meetings, so many requests on my time, constantly, I feel like I've gone on autopilot. I feel like I'm just reacting to life. When an email comes into my inbox, I just write something back. And when I get a message on my mobile phone, I just respond to it. I'm not thinking, I'm not reflecting, I'm not pausing. And it has impacts on my leadership and my well-being. I want to be a more empathetic leader. I want to be more focused. And I want to be more prioritized. And I think mindfulness can help. And I said, great, so let's see what we can do. And we met for 10 weeks, an hour every week. And he learned how to practice mindfulness. And I'll put you guys to the practice in a few minutes, just so you won't leave this room without having tried it. So he got to practice mindfulness every day, 10 minutes a day, which is the same thing that you'll find in the book if you're interested in that. He got to learn how he could use that in dealing with his emails, with his meetings, with his priorities, with goal setting, with all the things that he had to do while he was at work. And then he learned some of the foundations of mindfulness, which is called the mental strategies or the attitudes. Basically, how do you rewire your brain to be more patient, to be more kind, to be more accepting, and to let go of all the constant crap that we keep in our mind that is so useless for us. And so we did this for 10 weeks, and then he came back on the last week, and I said, Jacob, you were very, very busy. We have now spent 10 weeks with a lot of this practice. What have you gotten out of it? And Jacob, he paused for a second, and then he looked at me with these calm eyes, and I'll never forget this moment. He said, I got 1 second. And at first I thought, crap. He spent a lot of time. And you got 1 second. That's just really poor math. You don't need to be a math major to see that's really bad for business. But his explanation was very profound. He said, I got 1 second of freedom in my mind, so that every time something happens to me, every time an email comes in or a text message or somebody says something to me, or every time I think about something, or every time an emotion comes up. I have a second of freedom in my mind to choose the most appropriate response rather than on autopilot just reacting. Does that make sense? Going from autopilot to freedom, going from reactivity to responsivity. And that is the secret sauce, that is the little ingredient of mindfulness. That with this practice, we're developing this sense of space within our mind, that we know what's going on out there, we know what's going on in here, and we can respond in the most appropriate way. And with Jacob's words, he said, because I'm 1 second ahead, I can choose moment to moment when my people come to me to have more empathy. I can choose moment to moment to be more focused. I can choose moment to moment, what am I prioritizing right now? So it's kind of the tool for developing most of the qualities that we want in life, whether that is those things or more kindness or patience.
So mindfulness is this ability of becoming more present, but also coming a little bit ahead of ourselves. And if we take and put that into a bigger picture of what's going on in organizations globally, it makes a lot of sense that we have a need for this. I've been traveling almost around all of the world for the past 7 years, in Australia, in Asia, in Europe, and in the US, where we have lots of clients. And when I get there, I always ask them, why are you introducing mindfulness? Why do you spend training budgets? And why do you spend time on bringing mindfulness to your company? And they give more or less the same answers. All of them say that our people are under pressure. Most of them say that people are always on their mobile devices and on their emails. They say that people are information overloaded, and they say that people are really distracted. Working environments where there's just so much noise, so many distractions coming at them all the time. So pressure, always on, information overloaded, and distracted. We call it the paid reality. That's just the acronym, those words. How many of you, in your experience of your work, is living or working in the paid reality? Hands up. Okay. Welcome to the paid reality. The interesting thing about the paid reality is that it's really a huge attack on our mind and specifically on our attention. What is happening in the attention or in the paid reality is that our attention is completely scattered. And the research has found that 46.9% of our time, our mind is involuntarily wandering away from what we're doing right now. So that's basically half of our waking hours. We're not paying attention to what we're doing. How is that for you guys? So that's the other funny thing about the mind. It is so incredibly preoccupied with what has happened in the past and what will happen in the future. And the ironic thing is, the past is gone. It's never ever gonna come back. And the future has not yet arrived. It's just like a theory. We will never get to the future. The only thing we have is this moment. And if we're missing out on being present in this moment, we're completely missing out on life. But that's what's happening for most of us nowadays. We're getting attention deficit trait because we have too much pressure. We're always on, information overload, and distracted. And we get this kind of mind that you found that simply cannot be attentive for 45 seconds. Does it make sense so far? So then the big question is, what can we do about it? And mindfulness is this very old technique that has been practiced both in Christian tradition, in Catholic tradition, in Buddhist tradition, in Hindu tradition, all kinds of traditions for many, 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 many years. And now it's come to the West in a very, let's say, scientific packaging. A lot of research has been done on it. The most compelling research is showing that by training mindfulness, we actually become more focused, more present, more attentive. We can train our brain just like a muscle to be more present, to be more attentive, to be more focused at whatever we want to focus on. It's called neuroplasticity. Has anyone heard of neuroplasticity? A few of you. It's basically a neuroscientific term for the way that the brain is working. The brain is working in a very simple way. Basically, what we do with our brain right now is the shape our brain is taking. So for every moment we allow ourselves to wander away mentally and not be present, we are creating a mind, a brain that just by default wants to wander more and more. And the more we do it, the more it just happens naturally. On the other hand, for every moment we actually pay attention deliberately to what we're doing, whether that's listening to a talk, whether it's giving a talk, whether it's writing an email, whether it's being with our friends, whatever we pay attention to, we're enhancing that attentional muscle. So it basically means we can train. We may be living in the paid reality, we may be suffering from attention deficit trait, but something can be done about it. And mindfulness is that tool. Does that make sense? Then I would like to do a little practice with you, and then I think share a bit of the research, and then just open up to any questions. So the practice of mindfulness is very, very simple. And we have condensed it into 4 letters, A, B, C, and D. The A stands for anatomy. So it's very useful when you're practicing mindfulness that you're sitting comfortably. And fortunately, you're all sitting on chairs, which is great. One thing that I'll recommend you is to sit with both feet on the ground, with kind of a grounded balance, and with a straight back. We won't do it yet, but just illustrating it. And then when we do it, it's a good idea to close the eyes, because that makes it a little bit easier. You don't get as distracted from all the things that is moving around. We breathe through the nose, and that's more or less it. That's the A for anatomy. The B stands for breath, and the breath is the weight that we're lifting, the mental weight we're lifting. Like when we go to the gym to train our physical muscles, we lift a weight. In mindfulness practice, the breath is our weight. So what we do is we pay attention to our experience of breathing. And specifically, I'm going to ask you to follow the experience of your breath at your belly. So as you're breathing in, your belly is rising, as you're breathing out, is falling. And simply sitting and noticing, paying attention to only that thing. Don't try to make it shorter or longer or deeper or more shallow. Just let the breath do the work and focusing on that. So to help you stay focused on the breath, the C for counting, you count in the way that you're breathing in, when you breathe out, you count 1. You breathe in, breathe out, count 2, in, out 3, up to 10. When you reach 10, you count backwards down to 1 again, and you count back and forward like that. You may suddenly reach 37. You were on autopilot, you were not paying attention, go back to 1 again. You may also find that you're not counting, go back to 1 again. Last instruction is the D for distractions. And distractions is everything that is not counting or breath. That is a distraction. All the stuff in here is a distraction. There may be physical distractions. And distractions are your best friends in this practice. Because they are the ones, seriously, the ones that are telling you, hey, you're off track. Come back to the breath again. So every time you find a distraction, just say thank you and return your attention back to the breath again. Every time you do that, you're strengthening that attentional muscle. Make sense? Any questions to any of these instructions? All right. Then I'll just sit down and I'll guide a 4-minute practice. So we'll start with the A, anatomy, sitting comfortably, with the feet on the ground, with a straight back, closing the eyes, breathing through the nose, and generally allow the body to relax, to be at ease. And then let your attention move to the breath and simply observe the experience of the in-breath followed by the out-breath, specifically the abdomen. Noticing your belly rising and falling. Counting at each out-breath. And in this wonderful environment, there are so many beautiful distractions, whatever they are. Just notice them, and with a bit of gratitude, simply return your attention back to your breath. And we'll sit like that in silence for a few minutes. And now in your own pace, you can let go of the practice, open your eyes and return attention to this room. So it's a very, very simple practice, not easy. Did anybody feel drowsy or about to fall asleep? A few, thank you. Did anybody just were not able to control too many thoughts? A lot of thoughts coming. A few? Yeah. Okay. So those are the two key challenges that we're facing in this practice. Either we get really drowsy or we have a lot of thoughts. And what we're trying to develop here is that middle point where we're able to have a calm, clear and focused attention. And the more we can do that in this practice, the more we're able to do it in life, in work life. When we're with our emails, we can be calm, not tense and stressed. We can be focused and we can have clarity of mind. And when we go to a meeting, that's what we bring to the meeting. And what research have found is that as we do this practice, the part of our brain called the prefrontal cortex, just behind the forehead here, is strengthened. It is actually growing thicker the more we engage in this practice. And the prefrontal cortex is associated with, first of all, attention. That makes sense. As we're training our attention, our attentional muscle gets bigger. But the second thing is what is called executive function. Our ability, moment to moment, to choose what is the right thing to do. So ethical discernment, prioritization, how do we respond to our kids, how do we respond to our employees. Making the best choices in life also happens up here, and all of that is strengthened through this practice. Researchers also find that we sleep better, we have more young, beautiful skin. I started this practice when I was 55, now I'm 77. Wounds heal faster, we are more creative, we are better at problem solving, we are better at collaborating. There's just a whole list, very, very long list of research studies finding all kinds of benefits coming out of this practice. And why? Why is that? I think it's because as we engage in this practice, what we find is also a stronger inner sense of peace. And when we find more peace in here, and more peace in our mind, we simply become better at doing what we have to do because we're not so cluttered with all the distractions and all the stuff that is going on around us. So that's why mindfulness, I think, is one of the most important tools for people that are busy and people that have, stressful lives, because it helps us in all of those ways. But the last thing that I'll say, which I think is the most important thing about mindfulness, and I'll go back to that first client I had after that big failure client, the big insurance company. The guy who initiated that program, Thomas, he was a sales director, so very, very linear thinker, very, very bottom line driven. And he came to me on the 4th week of the program and he said, Rasmus, there's something I want to share with you. He said, I initiated this program to our entire sales division, hoping that we would become more focused, more productive, higher performing. That has happened and I'm grateful, but I experienced something more profound on myself and my people, which is we're becoming better human beings. And that to me is what mindfulness is ultimately about. What happens when we find this more sense of inner peace is that we make more peace with other people. And we're basically better at creating a better world, better work environments, more kindness and compassion. And if anything is needed in this world today and probably any day, that is compassion. That we become better performers and more productive, that is also great. So with those words, I will stop talking and see if there's anybody who's got any questions or reflections, comments. Anybody? Handing it over to...
Voy a aprovechar para terminar de contestar. En España llevamos ya un tiempo haciendo programas y, por ejemplo, ¿cómo lo hemos adaptado? Pues acabamos de tener un cliente que lo que tiene es un problema de error en la fabricación de algo, y entonces ha pensado que trabajando la atención se va a solucionar el error. Entonces hemos hecho un programa, que es la gracia de este programa, la diferencia con los demás programas de mindfulness, que se adapta al cliente. Entonces es un trabajo previo de analizar cuál es el problema del cliente a efectos de atención, si es un problema de estrés, si es un problema de comunicación, si es un problema general, si es un problema de error, y el programa se adapta. Entonces, adaptándote mucho al cliente, adaptándome mucho al micrófono, adaptándote mucho al cliente, consigues que realmente provoques un cambio en la empresa. Y esto es lo que genera, ¿no? Esto es lo que consigues con el mindfulness, adaptándome mucho. Después de contestar esto, quería básicamente agradecer a Sergio, que cuando entramos en Urano con este libro, nos atendió y dijo que lo quería, sin más.
No, primero lo leí.
Lo primero lo leí. Es en gran parte es la persona que lo ha traducido y lo ha traducido muy bien. Agradecer a Celia, que sin Celia tampoco existiría este libro ni los programas. Agradecer a Rasmus que haya venido. Justo con él antes estaba hablando de la primera vez que yo supe de él, fue hace 7 años, lo hemos descubierto por el color de su web, cuando en aquella época era verde, y hace 7 años que era verde, y nunca hubiese pensado que acabaría escribiendo un libro con él y que acabaría trabajando con él, con lo cual me hace mucha ilusión, que para mí el mindfulness ha cambiado mi vida. Y ya que está por aquí delante, le voy a agradecer a mi mujer, que también ha trabajado mucho en la traducción y ha trabajado mucho apoyándome en todo este proyecto. Y por allá al fondo hay una persona, Alberto Rivera, que también ha sido un gran apoyo en todo este proyecto. Así que muchísimas gracias a todos y gracias por estar aquí.
Yo también voy a agradecer, y tengo a mi marido delante, primero a Jordi, de hecho porque pude comprobar el programa en su compañía y me gustó mucho compartir esto con él. Y hace unos años hace muchos años que practico, pero la gracia de este libro y la gracia del programa es que se adapta al entorno organizacional y es a lo mejor lo que le hace menos fácil, ¿no? Que comentabas, ¿no? Creo que hablamos el idioma de las organizaciones. Entonces, bueno, creo que todo está dicho. Les pido las gracias y, bueno, gracias a todos por estar aquí. Si tenéis alguna pregunta más.
Todo el que quiere el libro firmado, por favor, lo pueden coger ahí, comprar y lo firmará Rasmus y Celia.
Gracias.